Welcome to Escape Artist, the podcast where we celebrate the bold souls who have dared to break free from the confines of the corporate 9-to-5 grind to pursue their passions and create a life of personal and financial freedom. Each week, we'll uncover the stories of extraordinary individuals who have embarked on their own entrepreneurial adventures. Our guests will share their personal tales of liberation, resilience, and triumph. Together, we'll explore the pivotal moments, the challenges, and the lessons learned along the way. So join me as we embark on a journey of discovery, courage, and boundless potential. Let's design the life you've always dreamed of, where the only boss is you. Here's your host, Laura Demetrius.
I have so many great things to say about my guest on today's episode. His name is Mitch Matthews, and he's the creator of the Dream, Think, Do podcast. He's also a success coach, a speaker, and a serial entrepreneur. His Dream, Think, Do podcast helps people to dream bigger, think better, and do more of what they were created to do. It's been rated the #1 podcast by Huffington Post and is in the top 1% of all podcasts. Plus, as a speaker and elite success coach, he spent the last 20 years helping organizations like Nike, United Airlines, and even NASA. He's built a business training program that has helped thousands of life and success coaches from around the world to build successful and profitable businesses they love. Also, he's a dear friend of mine, and we go way back. In fact, I was on his podcast several years ago, and it was my first podcast appearance ever. So this is a full circle moment for me, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear from my dear friend, Mitch Matthews. All right. Hey, what's happening, friends? Today I have Mitch Matthews on the podcast, and I'm so excited to chat with him. In fact, one thing that I was going to mention to you, Mitch, before I hit record was this is such a full circle moment for me because you were the first podcast I was ever on, and it feels really surreal to be launching a podcast and having this conversation with you as someone who's
fun.
Yes,
Come
and you are
on.
a phenomenal
How great
podcaster.
Is that?
And me listening to so many of your episodes, I feel like helped me realize the conversations that I want to have with people. And I've always looked up to you. You're amazing. And I'm just so excited to have this conversation. So thanks for being here.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that's fun. That's something to celebrate right there. That's great.
Yeah, it's been a while. It was probably
it was like 400 years ago, wasn't it?
6 or 7 years ago or something when I launched my book. Yeah, so at least that. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? I love it. I love it. Well, I'm so excited to be here. I love the theme of this show. I think it's fantastic and so excited to have this conversation.
Awesome. Well, then with that, let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started in this industry as a coach, a speaker, being an encourager?
Right. Truly. Like I am an encourager. I'm a professional encourager. So I am a coach, a speaker, and a content creator. And I love it. And like you well know, I was in the pharmaceutical industry for a number of years, had some real success there in sales and in corporate training. And then I got promoted into a bad fit job. It wasn't necessarily a bad fit, or it wasn't a bad job. It wasn't a bad company, but it was a bad fit for me. And that was hell. Like I knew it immediately. I was just like, this just doesn't feel right on so many levels. And it was brutal. As you know, every day I got into my company car, beautiful company car, a little part of me just died. Partly because I felt like maybe I shouldn't feel bad about this. I'm getting paid well. I've got a pretty good gig, but it was just a bad fit. And I know that you're a prayer person. I'm a big prayer person. And for me, I also knew that was just not where I was meant to be anymore. Mm-hmm. And, I'm a big believer that there are seasons to life. And sometimes a career or a job or a position are the absolute right things for a season.
Yeah.
But then seasons can change. And that's definitely what happened in my life. So I'm grateful for that bad fit job because it served as a wake-up call, because I know even though I was doing well and making good money in the pharmaceutical world, it was not where I was supposed to spend the rest of my days. And that bad fit woke me up to that fact. But if I'm being honest, I wasn't quite sure what the right fit was, especially in this new season. So I started to experiment. I started to look around, and then I'll never forget, I had a particularly bad day, and I came home And my wife handed me a magazine that she had just been looking at, and it was a business magazine. And there was this feature article on this entrepreneur. And I'm looking at it, and I wasn't particularly connected to this entrepreneur or this product that the entrepreneur had. And she's like, oh, no, 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 not that. Look at the sidebar article. And the sidebar article was about this entrepreneur's coach. And she's like, when I read that article about what that person did, I thought that's what Mitch does.
Mm,
And I had done a lot of that. I'd done a lot of coaching and mentoring in the corporate, training world. I just really didn't know that was a gig. I didn't know that was a business, all those
yeah.
things. So, almost instantly it just felt this connection. Like, I'm like, that is it. Now, I know you've had this too, where all of a sudden I knew exactly what the what was, but I was not sure what the how was. And
Yeah.
so I started to experiment, started to lean in. I went and got certified by a big name organization, spent a bunch of money on it, all of that. It was good training, but I realized a little bit too late, there was no business training to it at all. So they taught me to be a confident coach, but not a competent business person,
Uh,
or a competent entrepreneur. So I had to learn all that on my own.
yeah.
And I'll be honest, I floundered for a while. It just didn't work. It didn't click. But then I started to figure out what we now call the six-figure sequence. I started to figure out these things that if I did them and did them repeatedly and did them in order, it just started to work. And I thought I was going to be on the 5-year plan of, I'll work my way out of this job, because we at the time were living the sitcom life. My wife was at home with our 2 boys. So we had the single income oppressive mortgage, or 2 children and oppressive mortgage.
Yep.
So I couldn't just quit. But we started to put this plan into place, and I thought I was on the 5-year plan, and we were able to launch, and I was able to go full-time in 5 months.
Wow.
And we have not looked back since. I'm so grateful for that. And then in about 2008, other coaches really started to pay attention to what I was doing and started to demand that I train them on what we now call the six-figure sequence. And so we started to do these little boutique trainings just on the weekends, where I would get like 6 or 8 coaches together and I'd just train them on this stuff. And it worked and it clicked and it made a difference for everybody. So we took that training online in 2011, and we've been able to help other coaches around the world, thousands of coaches around the world now, with their business building and all of that. So it's really, really satisfying. It feels like who I am and who I'm created to be. I am an encourager of encouragers, and I love it.
That's incredible. And I know that you've been doing this for a while and you found your calling. You said even when you read that article, like that you knew that this was for you. Like,
Yeah,
I'm sure that you saw like basically coaching and encouraging others. You probably like,
right.
that's easy. I can do that.
I can do
Would you
that. I
say
didn't know
that
that was a business. How does that even work? Like, what would that,
it's a business?
what would that even look like? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So do you like, did you go through multiple different iterations of your coaching business? Or do you feel like when you really settled into like your groove and you figured out what worked for you, like that's just what you've been doing ever since?
That's a great question. So I think, like we talked about with careers, I think there's seasons to a business too.
Mhm.
And so, yes, I have had different iterations of the business, but that's a part of it. Like, one of the things we talk about in our training for coaches is we talk about the importance of having an ideal client, but also how that is taught incorrectly most of the time.
Mm.
Because what we talk about is kind of locking into a particular profile, and that is wildly important. But oftentimes we do it too quickly,
Yep.
and what's interesting is people get caught in what we call the ideal client conundrum. Like, people are told, I've got to get clear on my ideal client. I can't start until I get clear on my ideal client, but I can't figure out my ideal client until I start. I can't start until I get my ideal client. I can't start, and it just gets into this loop of, where do I start? I'm stuck. I can't get
Yeah,
started.
so much inaction. Like
Right.
I think people have
Absolutely.
these great ideas of what they want to do with business, and then it leads to, oh, I don't know the first step. I don't know if what comes first, the chicken or the egg, and then they
Right.
end up not doing anything.
That's exactly right. And so that's what we talk about, is even with the ideal client, we talk about the 4 phases of getting clear on your ideal client. And with everything we talk about the importance of experimenting. But with these 4 phases, we talk about that there are 4 phases. Getting clear on your ideal client, there are 4 phases that come with that. The first one is anyone and everyone, which is where I started. I came out of that coach training program and I'm like, you know what? I can coach the world. I can help everybody. I want to help everybody. I love everybody. I want to see everybody do well, all those. And like if you try to help everybody, you help no one, right? But you have
Yes.
to start there. Like you have to say, all right, I'm going to help as many people as possible. But the second phase is where you give yourself permission to what we call have a first draft ideal client. That is a best guess ideal client. If you actually look up the word hypothesis in the dictionary, it is a well-informed guess.
Yeah.
It is a best guess. And that's what you do. You say, okay, I think this is my ideal client. And then you take action. You get started. And we recommend do that for 2 to 3 months. Like say, all right, what clicks, what jives, create content, start to do some things, figure it out, start to work with those
Maybe
people.
even find out you were completely wrong.
Completely wrong. That's exactly right. Because then that leads you to phase 3, which is the evaluate and adjust phase. So it's the opposite of the anyone and everyone. It's the evaluate and adjust. So now you're at least working with some data. You're like a scientist that's saying, okay, this research, okay, this part of the experiment went the way I thought. This part of the experiment didn't. Okay, like I'm learning. At least you're moving forward and learning. 4th phase is what we call micro niche. And that is, a lot of people try to say, what's your niche? What's your niche? But I always say, the bigger money and the bigger opportunity is in micro niches, knowing a niche so well that you find your little areas. And there's a good chance you didn't even know they existed when you started, but you find those little areas that are just for you. So like, I'll give you an example from me. When I first got started and I started to understand this ideal client thing, my first draft ideal client was I was going to help people be more efficient and effective. I'm a to-do list guy. I love to-do lists. My calendar is color coded. I've got flow charts. You do this kind of thing too, right? Like things of beauty, all of that. And I'm really good at that. And I thought, you know what? I want to help people to become more efficient and effective. So I started with that. I started to write blogs about that. I started to, put out value-based content on those kinds of concepts. And I got clients and I started to work with them. But over that time, I started to figure out, okay, what's connecting? Like when somebody tells their friend about me, what do they rave about? When I ask them, hey, it seems like you're really excited. What are you most grateful for about our work together? It wasn't all that about their calendar or getting home on time or getting more done during the day. When they were raving to their friends or when they were excited to me and writing up a testimonial, what I saw them focusing on was I was helping them get clear on what was most important in their life.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they want to get more efficient and effective, but why? Like, what did they want to do more of? What did they want to do less of? What did they want to get home for? What did they want to get to the office to do and do better than anybody else? Like, I was really good at helping them figure that out. So
It's
as
like
I
the feature
evaluated
versus
and
benefit,
adjusted,
right?
yeah, right,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that's where we started to focus. And then within that, certain micro niches started to appear. So like one of my micro niches, because my coaching business, I still coach every week. And half of my coaching is executives, leaders, entrepreneurs, and half of my coaching are other coaches and speakers. But with those executives, those leaders, those founders, one of my micro niches is I actually help high-level leaders make decisions when they don't want to talk to anybody else about them yet. So
That's
sometimes
good.
a business leader might be thinking about moving their company, or they might be thinking about retiring, or they might be thinking about making some major changes in their team, and they don't want to talk to anybody else about it yet, just because they know there's ripple effects to those conversations. Even talking to their spouse about potentially moving the company, their spouse might even be supportive of it, but they're going to start looking at real estate apps. They're going to start looking at school districts. They're going to start looking at all those things. And they're like, I don't want to cause those things. So I just realized I'm really good with that micro niche. Now, what's interesting is if you go to my website, you will not see anything about that micro niche on my website.
Mhm.
All of the micro niche for me, for that micro niche, all of that business is referral
Wow.
because leaders in those situations know other leaders that are in those
Yes.
situations and they tell their friends, right?
Yep.
But oftentimes the company will pay for their coaching. So they don't want to, front and center, I help high level leaders make decisions they don't want anybody else to know about. Like they don't want the HR department that's paying for the coaching to
Right.
know that's what they're
And
doing.
also, highly confidential
Right.
conversations too, where it's like, I
Absolutely.
need one ear to like hear me out on this before
And yep. And my only bias in those scenarios is them. Like
yeah.
I am for
Yep.
them. I'm not worried about losing my job. I'm
Yep.
not worried about, I'm concerned for them and their organization, but like my job is to help them make a good decision.
Yep.
My job is not attached to any one outcome. And that's what's beautiful because then they know they can trust me, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't have a dog in the fight other than that I am with them, helping them navigate that, right? So I would have never known that when I was in my first draft phase. The
Yeah.
only way I found that micro niche, which has been a very lucrative, very satisfying micro niche, the only way I get to that is through those 4 phases. And that's what I
Yeah.
tell people. I was like, the 4 phases make the difference because the beauty of understanding the 4 phases is you can move through them quicker.
And that's such a great micro niche too, because it's one of those things that, when you're thinking about coaching high level entrepreneurs, you almost forget that there's people, it's almost like therapy for them, right? Like they
Yeah,
need somebody to talk to about those really big decisions before they go to their spouse or,
absolutely.
if
Yep.
they're
Yep.
thinking about or they're, potentially getting acquired and they're like, I can't say a word about this yet, but like it's
Yep.
very heavy and they're relying on you for that. What a great niche that people probably don't even realize is there, but there's so many people that need to have those conversations.
And that's the beauty of a micro niche. That's what we talk about with coaches all the time. The coaches that are in our, coaching business building training, as we say, get excited
Yeah.
because there are micro niches. And I mean, it's an extension of the people I was already excited about, but
Mhm.
I'm even more excited to talk with these people. Like my
Yeah.
schedule was full of those coaching calls yesterday and like call after call, session after session. I'm like, how blessed am I that I'm getting to work with these people that are amazing. Like they're impressive people
Yeah.
and I'm getting to help them navigate this. Now, Laura, like you know this, like prayer and my faith is a really big thing, but you also don't see a lot of that on my website. You don't see a little fish logo on my website or anything
Mhm.
like that. But what's wild about that is I'm open about my faith on my podcasts. I talk about it quite often. I don't hide it, but I just don't put it out there. But what
Right.
I do with my clients is I will say, hey, listen, I pray before every coaching session that I do. If that's not your brand of vodka, that's fine. I'm not going to be offended. I'll just pray before we get on. But if you'd be interested in that, or that's your thing, I'll wait and I'll pray with you and for
Mhm.
you. And probably 80% of my clients say, nope, I'll take 2 scoops of that. Whether they
Yeah.
come from
Yeah.
a faith background or not. I've
Yeah.
got one
I'll
person
use
that
whatever help I can get.
that's exactly right. I've got somebody that's from a very, different faith background, kind of a new age track, which is just fine. My
Mhm.
gosh, she loves prayer. And I think
Yeah.
in some ways she's more open to it than some people that grew up in the church. She's like open to God loving her. She loves that idea, that kind of stuff. So that's what I love about coaching too, is you truly can you don't have to wait for somebody to give you permission to make a
Yeah.
policy change. Like
Mhm.
that's not something I had to ask permission for as like, hey, can I pray with my clients? Is that okay? It's like, wait, do I want to? Do I feel led to?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Then I'm going to offer it. I don't
Right.
force it on anybody. I try not to make it ever seem weird, that kind of stuff, but that's your thing. But I think that's the beauty of being an escape artist. Whether you go to do it full time or whether you're just doing it on the side, a side hustle is awesome. Like a
Yeah.
side hustle can be a lifeline to that
Yes.
future that you want to create, right? So it's that whole thing of I love what you're encouraging people to do. It's
Yeah.
that, get started, get experimenting. Cause I know for me, I had to experiment on the side for a while. But once I
Yeah.
started to get clear, it started to happen a lot faster.
Yeah. And I can be the first to say, like, don't wait until you don't get to make a decision yourself. Like, start on it now. Like, nobody's
Right.
stopping you from staying up a little bit later or waking up a little bit earlier and doing things because you love to do it. If you don't
Yep.
love doing it, by all means, like, please don't do it. But if
Right.
it's something that you want to start doing, like, you don't need to wait. There's no sense in waiting. Get a
That's
start on it
it.
now. You
Well, it's
never
one of
know what's
those
going to
I'll never
happen.
forget when I was in that bad fit job. I had switched companies to have this bad fit job, and it allowed us to move and do some other things that we wanted to do. And I'll never forget, I was a pharmaceutical industry, so I had everything. Like they gave me a phone, they gave me a car, they gave me a computer, all those things. But I went and got my own cell phone. And my wife at first was like, "Oh, the company's paying for a cell phone. They don't care if you do personal calls." And I was like, "Nah, I really want to keep things clear."
Yes.
Right. But I didn't realize it at the time, but that cell phone, it was a Nokia. Like, it's so funny to think about. This is like 2001, right? So it was not
Yeah.
a small phone, but it was a Nokia. I'll never forget it. But in meetings, when I would be in corporate meetings that sometimes were, rapidly killing my soul, I could just rub that personal cell phone that was in my pocket. I'm not going to say it was on a belt clip. I'm not going to admit to it, Laura, but it might have been. But like I could rub that other cell phone and just be reminded this is not where I'm going to spend the rest of my days.
Yeah.
It was just that lifeline to something else. And I totally agree with you. Like if you're thinking about something else, find ways to experiment, get started, because it's so much better to be able to I believe in steps of faith versus blind leaps of faith. And I
Yep.
know for me, it still took faith to step out to do
Mhm.
my own thing, especially to leave the pharmaceutical industry, which, at the time looked like the safest industry of all industries. Like to step out still took faith, but I was stepping out into a business that was growing, right?
Yeah.
I had hit what we call my leap number. I had hit my leap number. So I knew, okay, this is when we decided I hit that leap number, I'm going for it. And that just helped me to have tremendous amounts of peace as we were taking that step.
Hello, my fellow digital entrepreneurs. It's Laura here, and I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to something truly transformative. Picture this. You're armed with the most cutting-edge digital marketing strategies, equipped with high-income skills, and empowered to establish and run a thriving online business in just a matter of days. That's where Digital Wealth Academy comes into play. This program isn't just your typical online course. It's a comprehensive journey meticulously crafted to guide you from where you are to where you dream of being. With Digital Wealth Academy, you'll learn everything from creating your own digital products to how to launch your business strategically. You can dive into funnel building, branding, email marketing, and how to build trust with your audience. What's even better is you'll gain exclusive access to the master resale rights to the course. So even if you don't have your own product yet, you can sell the course yourself to get your business started. Imagine rebranding and sharing this invaluable knowledge as your own while reaping the rewards time and time again. Head to www.sidehustlelaura.com/DWA or click the link in the show notes to step into the world of digital entrepreneurship today. Remember, your journey to success begins now. Keep believing and keep breaking free. I love that physical symbolism too, of like having
Right.
that phone there as like a
Right.
reminder. And I want to talk about something that I don't usually talk about with other guests, but
Yeah.
now
Oh
you've got
boy,
me thinking a
fun.
lot about it because it's usually like what to do after you've escaped the 9 to 5. I
Yeah.
want to talk a little bit about like the process of escaping and
Yes.
like when things don't feel right. Because I
Yes.
know sometimes it's, it's a clash of morality. Sometimes it's, you're not aligned with core values. Like,
Yep.
what do you feel like it was within you where you're just like, this isn't forever for me?
Yes, absolutely. So the number of things started to line up. And again, I feel like I know part of this was prayer, just knowing something wasn't quite right. And like I said, I had been in the industry for a while. When I got into the industry, I was in a very forward-thinking entrepreneurial company that had a couple of very successful products. I had a really exciting territory. I was in Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. So I always joked that I had the northern half of the Louisiana Purchase as a territory. Pretty amazing.
Beautiful
All those
area
things,
too.
right? Absolutely amazing. Then I got a promotion. I went to Chicago. I was in the headquarters. I started to, I was a program training manager for this $2 billion pharmaceutical company. It was great, learning a lot, excited, stretched, training 24/7. It was just great. I look back now and go, oh my gosh, that was the perfect training ground for what I do now, all those
Mhm.
things. But then I switched to this other company in order to move our family back to Iowa. We had some different things going on with our family, wanted to be closer to my parents, all those kinds of things. And almost immediately, different corporate culture, different product line, different way of doing everything. And
Yeah.
so where I had been given a bunch of, space to be creative and to try new things and really build relationships, all of a sudden I was pretty much asked to be a robot. Just do this, say this, go here, we'll tell you where to
Mm.
go next. That just didn't feel right. And like I said, though, I couldn't just quit. I would have loved to.
Especially for a natural encourager. Like,
Right,
that's gotta be tough.
exactly, exactly. So what's amazing, for me was I was like, all right, something's not right. So one of the first things that I did was I looked back. A lot of people try to look forward. And I have this podcast called Dream Think Do. We do events called Big Dream Gatherings. I have another podcast called Encouraging the Encouragers. People just assume that dreaming comes easy for me. It doesn't. Like,
Mm.
that's why I like talking about it, because it doesn't actually come naturally to me. I've had to like work on it. I'm naturally a worrier. Like, that's what comes
Mm.
easiest for me. I worry about stuff, right? And I have gotten a lot better at that. I'm not perfect at it, but I've gotten a lot better at overcoming that. And I'm getting better every day. But dreaming hasn't always come naturally to me.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of people out there, like high performers, where they can dream like crazy for their organization, or they can dream like crazy for their team. But when it comes to what are your dreams? What do you dream of doing? They're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I was. So I couldn't really look forward naturally. So where I started was I looked back and I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm not passionate anymore about what I do. When was I passionate? I know I have been passionate before. When was I passionate? And I thought back to growing up in a little town in Iowa where I fell in love with bikes and a local bike shop, and I basically stalked the bike shop owner until he hired me at 13. He was either have me arrested for loitering or hire me, and he hired me. And I worked there through college. I sold my first training program. I actually went to small retail shops and taught them how to sell, because I loved selling and I loved training people
Wow.
on how to sell and all that stuff. So I was like, oh, I love that. I love the entrepreneurial aspects of the bike shop. I love the training aspects of that. Then I thought about my time in the pharmaceutical world, and I thought, I love developing people. Like, I liked relationships and selling, but I really loved my time in the training department and like developing people, seeing promise, drawing that out. And, I really had to go back and inventory, like, when did I have those passions? And I really encourage people to do this, but do it without searching for a title. Look for
Mhm.
the essence, look for the elements, but don't worry about the title, because that's what I was wrestling with. Was I had this feeling like where I was going was not going to be, like, from a career perspective, was not going to be exactly like where I had been,
I
but
feel
I
that.
could mine where I had been to get the essence of the things I was passionate about, to get the essence of the things that I was really good at. But I needed to do that independent of a title, because I had this sense that when, in this next season, I was probably going to be doing something I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And so that's what I had to do, is I had to go mine that stuff without worrying about, does this position exist, or is there a position that encompasses all this? I just had to go, oh, okay. So when I did that, entrepreneurism, development, training, growing relationships, selling. Like, I don't mind selling. I like, selling, all those things. I'm like, what encompasses that? And what I love about that is, and I think it's God's good design, and I married up, like, I didn't know something existed, but my wife, I think at the right moment said, hey, do you know this existed? Like, she pointed me to this magazine, and all of a sudden, this thing that I didn't know existed, all of a sudden I realized a version of it did exist.
Yeah.
So then once you start to have some of that clarity, then it's to start experimenting, to say, okay, I don't know if I could do that exactly, but who's doing it? How could I be learning from them? What are little experiments that I could do where I could, try this stuff out? Because you don't know. So I always say, invest in some training, go learn something, invest in yourself, for crying out loud, take a risk, and then explore that and see where it takes you. And I know that, for me, I say it was I feel like an idiot phase when I invested in the training, the coach training, and then realized it doesn't have any business training. So I'm kind of feeling lost. I was like, oh no, I feel like an idiot. But then I realized, well, no, I got part of this figured out. But okay, you thought they were going to have all the answers, but it's rare that one place has all the answers. So it's like, where do I need to go for the next set of answers?
That's
And
so relatable.
Staying curious, right? Yeah, exactly.
And there's so many things that I can relate to about what you just said.
Yeah.
The big one being like letting go of titles. Because when you think about it and when you actually have the time and the space to actually reflect back on all of the things that you've done, the experiences that you've had, the ways that you've grown, the titles that you've had previously are what like the boxes other people put you into, right? Like
exactly.
I let
it's
other
what they
people
needed.
Put me
it may
into a
not
box.
have been what you needed. Yeah, that's exactly right.
You put me in a box that has a title. Now I can remove that title and I can actually focus on the things that not only encompass all of my skills and the expertise that I bring to the table, but also just like what I want.
Yep.
Like I can finally think about what I want. And that's huge. It's like, let's not think about the title, but like, what is it that you love? What is it that you bring to the table? And how can you actually mold that into something that is career worthy? Because there's anything is career worthy.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, and it's amazing. Like, I don't know about you, but I like the era that we live in. It's not perfect. It's messy, right? All of that. And there's aspects of social media that I love and aspects of social media I don't like, right? But I mean, hey, I love air conditioning. I like indoor plumbing. So I'm glad that we live in the era that we live in. But one of the things that's absolutely amazing is there are ways to take an idea, and because we can literally touch people around the planet, there are ways to turn a lot of different ideas into businesses.
Yeah.
And not everybody's supposed to do that. But I think there's more potential for that than there has ever been since the dawn of time. I mean, it's crazy that, you'll experience this with your podcast, but like, if we don't post our podcast episode on a regular schedule, like if it's late, I have a listener in Africa that lets us know, in Zimbabwe, lets us know, hey, where's the Dream Think Do episode? Hello, we're waiting over here, that kind of stuff. And it's like, how crazy is that? How crazy is that? So, yeah.
The world isn't going to end because you didn't put it out there on time. However, you know that you're impacting people when they're asking for it.
How fun is that? Right. Yeah. And in corners of the world I've never been to, and, it's all delivered digitally and all those things. So I love it.
I think about stuff like that all the time. I mean, these can be weapons or they can be your greatest tool for literally launching a business today.
100%. I know Jesus would have used it.
Yep.
Does still today, but like, I love it.
Awesome. Well, I just want to know, because I've spoken to a few coaches and I love having these conversations with people. If you could give anyone a piece of advice, and I always go back to this, like, with coaches, is it more mindset versus tactics? And I always like to figure out what that juggle is. Usually people will say, obviously it's somewhere evenly distributed. It's both.
Right.
But what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's maybe thinking, they're meant for more, there's something that they can be doing, there's a business opportunity, or they want to be an entrepreneur? Like, as a coach, what types of things would you tell them?
Yeah. So I'll give you two different specific thoughts. One, I get this question a lot, and we've been helping coaches for a long time. And so we actually have put together an assessment. We call it the CPSA, the Coaching Predictability of Success Assessment. It's nerdy. It's too long a title, but it's accurate.
I love it.
But basically what we've done is we have put together data on our most successful coaches, and then people who have investigated the program or whatever, but decided it was a bad fit, all those things. We put an assessment together and basically said, hey, if you score this number or higher, we don't tell you the score until afterwards. But if you score this number or higher, there is a very good chance you have what it takes to be successful as a coach. If you don't score that high, that's okay. That does not mean you're a bad human. That just means we wouldn't suggest you trying to be a coach. Now, some people in the industry that you and I are in, like the online training space, they tell me, you are nuts. Like, you have just put together an assessment that tells some people to not buy your training. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I don't want people buying our training that wouldn't be a good fit for coaching. That would be a
The same
disservice.
reason people
right?
need disqualifiers from certain jobs. Like, you don't want
Right,
the wrong people in that
absolutely.
seat.
Do not do it. And
Yeah.
literally, like, we'll have people score low, and we've had some people like get back to us and say, thank you. This is really confirming. This releases me for, to go and look at other things. And then other people are like, this is what I needed to know that I can move forward. Whether they choose
Clarity.
a training program from us or not, at least it helps people move forward. So I always say, like, it's good to ask those questions. Like, if you're wrestling with, would I be a good fit for this? Can I really do this? Go check it out. So people can find that at mitchmatthews.com/CPSA. I'll send you the link so you can put it in the show notes, but it's free and it really has helped a lot of people. And I mean, it's brass tacks. Like, it really gets to specifics. But I think it really helps to weed out people where they should not go forward. And then it also helps to bolster people that do need to go forward, because I don't know about you, Laura, but like, I've been in this industry literally since 2002, been a full-time coach since 2002, and I have never seen the need for coaches that I've seen right now.
Wow.
COVID was terrible. I don't want us to ever go through that again. But one of the blessings of COVID is it woke a lot of people up.
Mm-hmm.
It made a lot of people go, oh, tomorrow really isn't guaranteed.
Yep.
And, they say the great resignation, like, that's not over. It just looks different. People are quieter about it now. People are doing it slower. But what that means, though, is the people that are doing it now are more intentional, but they also need more help.
Mm-hmm.
And so those people, like, I love helping those people. Those are not the people that are like, this week I'm going to do this, and next week I'm going to do this. Like, I love helping people who are like, I want to get clear. I want to be intentional. I want to build a plan. Like, I love helping those people. And I have never been busier. The coaches that go through our program, it's amazing how busy they are.
And those are the
I
ones that
love
are creating bigger impact overall, I believe.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, so I just really encourage people, seek it out, seek wise counsel. I mean, some people are a little nervous, to be honest, as they take the CPSA. They're like, oh, what is it going to say? But on the other side, almost everybody we hear from is just so grateful that they had the opportunity to do it. So I really recommend that. And then one of the other big things is, I always say, start experimenting. Of course, we sell training, so we help people build businesses, all of that. And I say, start, but also if you can find somebody that can guide you, do it, but make sure they are doing what you want to do. Like, there's a lot of people who sell coach training right now. And if you ask them, are you doing it? A lot of them are just selling coach training. They're not actually doing it. So I always say, make sure you're learning from somebody that you would like to mirror their business, as opposed to someone who's maybe never done it. Right.
Yeah.
But the other thing is I always say, is learn your craft. Like, I'm an encourager of encouragers. That is, I believe, one of the God-given identities that I have. Right. And what's interesting about encouragers, coaches, speakers, content creators, is there is an element to most encouragers that I work with that they have been encouragers for life. Like, they have encouraged in elementary school, they encouraged in high school, they encouraged in college, they encouraged in the corporate space. And that's beautiful. But what that also means is they tend to undervalue that gift of being an encourager. They also tend to undervalue the things they are naturally good at. But I always say, like, if I hopefully if I ever need surgery, and hopefully I don't, but if I ever have surgery, I hope that the person that would work on me, the surgeon that would work on me, my hope would be that, yes, they've gone to medical school, but my hope would be that they also in high school were really, really good at science. Like, they just found it super easy to remember where the bones were and to remember where the muscles were and what everything was called. Like, I would hope there was a part of them being a surgeon now that was based on something that they've done naturally their whole life. So I always say to encouragers that become coaches and speakers, don't undervalue your natural gifting and your natural passion.
Yeah, that's profound.
It is priceless. And when people invest in it, they value it more anyway. So I always say, as my prices have gone up, and I'm not cheap, but as my prices have gone up as a coach, it's amazing how much more committed my clients are. And I
Oh,
tell
yeah.
them this all the time. I say, hey, I charge a lot, but it's one of those things where I say it's as much for you, the client, as it is for me. Because,
Yeah.
and I tell people, like, I charge people up front for it.
Yep.
And what's funny is I'll say, when you're processing this invoice, coaching client, when you're processing this invoice, I hope you have a big goofy smile on your face.
Mhm.
And they will say, what are you even talking about? Like, and I'll say, listen, as you process this invoice, you can have a big goofy grin on your face because you are all in.
Yep.
If you process this invoice, it is freaking go time.
Yeah.
Like, you are going to go for it. So have a big goofy grin on your face, because that is also the ultimate commitment to yourself, that this is the time where
Yeah,
you're
for
all
sure.
in. And it's so funny because oftentimes I'll see an invoice come through paid, and then I'll see an email almost immediately that said, big goofy grin on my face, let's go, So
They have to bring
I
that up.
love that.
Yep.
Yep.
I love that. And I love so much, Mitch, that you don't undervalue what your gift is in this
Right.
world. And there's so many people out there that need it. And I've
Yeah.
known from the day that I was introduced to you how influential and positive and uplifting and encouraging you are. So I'm just glad that
Oh,
you're able
thank
to
you,
share
Laura. I
that gift with
appreciate
so
it.
many others.
From
And
one encourager to another. I'm just so excited for you to have this podcast, because people need to be learning from you. And I'm so excited to get to be on the show. And again, full circle. That's so fun to
it
be able
is full circle. And you've been a
to
huge
keep the
inspiration
loop and
for
then
me.
keep the loop going. So that's good.
Yes. Well, thank you again for being on this today. And just one more reminder for people, where can they go to find you and follow you online?
Best place, start at mitchmatthews.com. But if people are interested in the assessment, they go to mitchmatthews.com/CPSA, the Coaching Predictability of Success Assessment. It's helped a lot of people. And that's our hope with it, is to give people the clarity to take that next step with boldness.
Awesome. Well, I might just go check it out myself, because you can never
Dude,
have too much clarity, right?
I love it. Absolutely.
Well, thanks again,
Awesome.
Mitch. It was a pleasure. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Great.